Hello everyone. Currently I'm standing at the AFK spot of one of my new small additions to the world. The Hoglan farm. Up until now, my strategy for getting food looked something like this. So eventually I got a bit tired of that and decided to upgrade. In this farm, Hoglins are spawned on these platforms, scared by the warped fungi, run into the drop shaft, drop through the lava, and die at the bottom of fall damage and fire. This farm is a variation on the design I saw in Psycraft Blitz series. I slightly expanded it and added the glass skirt to push the rates just about to a full hopper speed. Also, as you may see, I finally started using Elytra. Overcoming my bedrock fears, so to say. The farm is insanely fast. From my tests, it produces about 6,700 pork chops per hour, which is to say a lifetime worth of food per hour, and also quite a bit of leather. And since the farm is above the nether roof, I decided to go out of my way and break a bedrock in a 3x3 area, mostly just for fun. So the Hoglan farm was a great success and a fairly simple project that didn't take me long. But as for the other small simple project I promised the last episode, if only I knew what kind of rabbit hole I was about to enter. The principle on which honey farms work is very simple. We have a hive, a dispenser above it full of glass bottles, and some redstone that reads the output signal of the hive. As the honey level increases, which by the way, you can see in my upper left corner thanks to mini HUD. Eventually this line triggers, the dispenser fires, and takes out the honey. But even from this simple demonstration, you may have realized what kind of problem I ran into. Glass. The dispenser alone requires 9 stacks of glass bottles, which equates to 9 stacks of glass. Plus, most likely the hopper that supplies it also has to be full of glass bottles. I did try to optimize the design somewhat to only require the dispensers themselves to be full of bottles. However, even this optimized system will require about 21 boxes of glass bottles. There is a couple ways of obtaining glass bottles in the game. You can kill a witch. You could trade for it with librarians, which by my estimations would take me about 174 days to obtain the amount I need. And of course, these methods do not solve the underlying problem. Non-renewable sand. When I completed the massive dig around the overworld mob farm, I collected all the sand and thought that I had got enough for some time, and yet 2/3 of it has been used up already, and I'm also running quite short on glass. So, whether I like it or not, I need a source of sand. But first, a small detour that will save me a lot of time later. Before building the sand duper, however, I decided to do something I've been procrastinating for a long time. That is, to finally get myself a beacon. Or ideally as many beacons as I can. It is a couple days later, and as you can see, I have somewhat fewer levels than I used to. Long story short, I went to farm some shulker shells, and managed to throw myself into the void. At least I was smart enough to put away the shells before I fell into the void, so I probably have plenty for all of my upcoming plans. On the bright side, this is the perfect opportunity to see how quickly I'll reach 30 levels. One minute and 10 seconds. Interestingly, this is almost exactly the same speed I got by trading with villagers, which is another excellent source of XP. Admittedly, one-shotting these guys is pretty fun, although knowing anything about the chances of a skull dropping and my usual luck, what was that? Well, apparently 1.19.2 does not have the FOV effects setting anywhere. Maybe Twikaru has something about that? Although, even if it does, it will have to wait. I guess we'll have to leave with this for now. I really don't seem to be making much progress towards what? Towards a wither skull. Never mind. Oh, please don't burn. Excellent. If I find a design that I like, I will also try to turn this fortress into a wither skeleton farm. Another skull? That's good. Uh-oh, I messed up. I messed up. Yeah, that was bound to happen. Well, here's another use for a smite sword. That said, how the hell do I get out of here? Whatever. I got 6 skulls, I'm bailing out. Well, here goes nothing. Did I accidentally get it stuck in bedrock? Well, this is funny. To say that this was underwhelming would be a major, major understatement. That sure feels amazing. Yet another should have been done much, much earlier in my playthrough. Looks like the entire dig site is within the range of the beacon, which is good. An hour and 2 broken pickaxes later, I am, let's see, slightly under 50% done. And that is not counting the fact that one of the most used materials in the build is cyan terracotta, for which I will also have to mine. Fortunately, the process is actually pretty enjoyable in a way. And here is the portal room. Now that I look at it, considering the volume of this room, I may be over 50% done with this dig. That said, even with beacons, automatic sorting systems and whatnot, I still cannot comprehend the fact that apparently Kronos guys have dug multiple render distance perimeters by hand. Can we talk about the fact that these windows in the vast majority of strongholds, except for the ones that are generated wrong, face a stone wall? Who even put them there? And why? It is the next day. The dig is complete. I have arrived here and got a little bit shot at. This is, however, only the beginning. In fact, it isn't even the only big digging job in this project. This is as good time as ever to explain what exactly I am going to build in this cavern. This is a sand duper. And I wish I could explain you how it works, but unfortunately, I really can't. All I know is that sand gets pushed upwards and accelerated towards the end portal. Here, it touches the end portal and goes to the other side at the same time as it turns back into its block form. Thus, sand gets duped. This particular contraption was designed by Illyrio, and for one, it is really small. It also uses some kind of crazy wiring, which I'm honestly not sure how to properly decipher. What I do know is that this thing dupes sand every 8 ticks, thus producing 108,000 sand per hour. Of course, having not designed the thing, I had to at least decorate it myself. And this is what I came up with. Although there is not much to see on the outside, so let's go inside. Here it is. As you may see, I chose a theme that is some sort of chemical reactor, I suppose. And which the duper rests inside of. I also made kind of a sloppy mistake and managed to place it slightly off-center. Here we got some purely decorative detail. And here's the very simplistic control panel. Pretty much the only change I made to the system is that I wired it in a way that allows to activate it from the outside of the reactor. As you can see, it's just a simple redstone line with a NOT gate. Everything needed for the build has been prepared, and I checked and double checked that I got everything. Actually, there's one thing I forgot. So this is the location. It actually has some wonky terrain generation, to put it lightly. And this is how I get down. Hand restock is such a nice feature. I wish I learned of it earlier. Recently I learned that there are even tools that allow you to automate managing your inventory for large builds, such as a feature that allows you to automatically take necessary materials out of an inventory upon opening it, according to a schematic. Ever since I got a reliable way to convert concrete, I frankly fell in love with it as a building material. It is so incredibly useful for pretty much anything that by design is not supposed to be textured, which happens to be quite a lot of things like painted metal, well, concrete, perhaps asphalt, eerie black void at the bottom of a industrial pit of sorts. I wonder how people approach inventory management in general, especially without Lightmatica. Seems like such a hassle, and the more you build and the bigger you go with your builds, the worse it becomes. Of course, the process of placing blocks, especially placing flat solid gray wall also blocks, isn't particularly interesting. But what I certainly want to show is how to get rid of these portal frames. Of course, first of all, I will have to activate the portal. And now what I'm supposed to do is go 1, 2 blocks to the side and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks down. Now I should place a mushroom and bone mill it. And... well, this is unfortunate. Try again. And this time it worked. As you can see, the mushroom grew and replaced the portal frames. Okay, I don't even need mycelium for this. With that out of the way, it's time to build the duper itself. Maybe I should also enable one of the carpet features, tellingly called flipping cactus, which significantly simplifies placing blocks in strictly specific orientations. Well, this is exactly what I was afraid of. What do I do about this? That works. Fortunately, I don't think it broke anything. I've never tried to placing us blocks right on top of an end portal, and apparently that works. So these observers read leaves when the leaves get updated by the moving piece of wood. For one, this is a bit ridiculous because why do leaves even update? They are already persistent and they don't care about the presence or absence of wood. And I think that's the duper done. Well, I am not seeing any missing blocks. So might as well try it out. And it works. Okay, that works. And that's the duper part done, and technically I could even stop here. However, of course, there's quite a bit of decorating left to do. Let's go ahead. After a rather lengthy building process, the facility is done. The duper inside is fully built and operational. And the deco looks pretty nice in my opinion. And I even hooked it up all to a portal-based chunk loader. Albeit not without much fumbling with portal linking. which left me with this unsightly configuration on the nether side. Once again, punished for not checking everything in creative. However, currently if I run the duper, all that will happen is a large mass of sand will accumulate on top of the end platform, and with no one to pick it up, the moment I enter the end, it will all load and cause serious trouble for my computer. So the next major part of the project will be organizing the end side and the collection system. Yeah, that turns out to be quite a speedy way of removing end stone. And in case you are confused why I am taking hardly any blast damage, that's because the way blast damage works in Minecraft is completely busted. Like, this will kill me. I think. Yeah, this will kill me. This will not. So yeah, removing a lot of endstone with anchors is viable, but doing it on a rather thin platform floating above the void is kind of too unnerving for my taste. And now you see the extent of the problem with removing endstone. Wait a second. What if I turn this thing around slightly? And now for the part of the build that I wish I could explain at all. The one that seems more like a ritual than a part of a technical build. So now I'm supposed to disable very specific parts of this tripwire mesh. How the heck do I do this? The problem with this is that this tech is locational, so I can't rely on the schematic right now. And this... Well, frankly, the only thing I can do right now is to go out to the overworld and check if it works. And it definitely did not work. I wonder why. Yeah, I figured it out. As I said, this tech is locational. And of course, I forgot to rotate the tripwire hooks themselves. And this time, it worked. Great. Can continue building. And while we are at it, I would like to discuss why, in my opinion, building this machine, which is literally a duper, is okay for a legit survival world. And it has everything to do with non-renewability of sand. That said, non-renewability by itself does not justify duping. In general, it is important to realize that renewable does not mean accessible, and non-renewable does not necessarily mean unavailable. It's all about the quantity of material that you actually need. Take for example netherite. It isn't renewable. However, it is not exactly scarce. In fact, it is plentiful. You can pretty easily test it by just taking a large chunk of nether terrain down at the bottom of the world and removing the netherrack. There is plenty of ancient debris, and obtaining the amount of you need isn't so much the question of having it to begin with in the world, and more a challenge to basically nuke as much terrain as possible as quickly as you can. The method that you choose entirely depends on your technical prowess and your needs. A humble cottagecore builder girl who may not know much about farms can build herself a simple sheep farm or even just a breeding pen and use beds to get a few pieces of ancient debris that she needs. I, being much more familiar with farms than with flying machines, opted to just craft an absurd amount of TNT, while someone more familiar with limestone could build a tunnel bore, and if you are a completely crazy lunatic, you might as well build a world eater or even a nether quarry like WaveTech guys did. In any case, the amount of ancient debris that you can realistically get is way beyond what you may ever need. So non-renewability is not a problem. This, however, does not apply to sand. While yes, it isn't exactly a rare material, the amount even I need is measured literally in tens or hundreds of thousands for both glass and TNT. And let's not forget that concrete also requires sand. So if I wanted to obtain it legitimately, I would need to more or less strip an entire desert from all the sand that it can offer. Not only doing this manually would be a ridiculous Sisyphean task in its utter stupidity, it would also look pretty darn ugly. I was utterly shocked when I saw on Elirio's channel that he apparently has not used a gravity block duper for anything other than TNT looting, because again, TNT is by far the most egregious sink of sand in the game. However, making a sand quarry is still almost certainly beyond both my material capabilities and my technical skills. I might go for it eventually, but that will have to wait probably for a long time. So far, I've been successfully getting away with using packed ice that I just mined from icebergs. However, at some point I will probably need a dedicated ice farm. Plus, it can be useful as a kind of stackable water. Oh no. I think it was pretty obvious that this was a misclick. I definitely will cycle the shulker boxes before launching the system. Also, these composters are such a cargo cool thingy. Like, how much lag do 14 hoppers produce? Now, when the build is done, all I have to do is verify the schematic. This is a little weird. This is all also intentional, and this is too. What worries me is these comparators. Also, I may have removed the temporary dirt platform a little too early for comfort. Oh yeah, it's because there's nothing in these shulker boxes. Speaking of shulker boxes, the massive drawback of the brute force parallelization approach that I took to box loading is that it requires an enormous amount of shulker boxes to pre-fill the system. Thankfully, I do have that amount of boxes, but putting them in place will still take some time and effort. Now, just to flush the system of all the shulker boxes which potentially have something inappropriate in them, I will activate each slice. For some reason, comparators still seem to be reading. Oh no, it's because I have to relaunch verification. And now they are all reading the same. So I think it worked. Oh, that was a grind. But now it's all done. The schematic is verified. Now all that's left to do is to spawn a bot. Who will turn the system on for me. Go to the end. Definitely not get flushed into the collection system. Okay. The soul speed is a bit of an issue here. And finally, tell the bot to turn the system on. And would you look at that? Sand! It's all weirdly quiet. This part is supposed to be kind of noisy. And it looks like the sand is properly getting picked up. And the containers are being filled. Wow. This is amazing. This was honestly such a massive project that I was sure something would go wrong the moment I turned it on. I ran the duper for about 20 minutes, just to see if everything works. And judging by the amount of sand I got, it does work. The boxes are getting filled, now all the way to the very last module. The overworld is clearly working. So now what I'm going to do is I will spawn another bot. And just leave it here while I go to the overworld side. Oh yeah, that's the noise. It's frankly awful. Now the last thing left to check is whether I can run it without a player in the facility. And for that I will remove this bot. Make sure that chunk loading is working, which it should, but who knows. It does seem to be working. And this time I built it in the correct location and not such that the entire duper is in the lazy chunks. And now, as I go into the end, the farm should continue running. Oh, yeah, it is definitely running. This stunt alone gave me over a stack. Well, so that is the Sand Duper project complete. However, in the meantime, I did not forget that what I needed wasn't sand, it was glass. And to get glass, I will need a furnace array. Not this one, mind you. I will need a much bigger and better one. But that is a project for another day. Until then, bye.